The courtroom was utterly silent. All eyes were fixed on Judge Marjorie Calloway, a woman whose reputation for arrogance and cruelty had earned her both fear and resentment from everyone who stepped into her courtroom. Sitting high on her bench, she looked down with a smirk at the man standing before her, Officer Elijah Brooks. "I never thought I'd see the day a man like you would wear a badge," she sneered, her voice laced with venom. "People like you belong in handcuffs, not in uniform." Gasps rippled through the room. The court stenographer stopped typing. Even District Attorney Philip Grayson, a longtime associate of Judge Calloway, widened his eyes in disbelief. But the only person who remained calm was Officer Brooks himself. He didn't flinch. He didn't react. He simply stood there, unwavering, with the patience of a man who knew something the judge didn't. 7 minutes later, she was the one in handcuffs. The same courtroom that had just witnessed her cruelty now erupted into chaos. Judge Calloway's face went pale as Officer Brooks stepped forward, badge in hand. "Judge Calloway, you are under arrest." His voice was steady, unwavering. "For what?" she shrieked, her attempt to maintain authority slipping with every word. Brooks didn't blink. Corruption, tampering with evidence, accepting bribes, and abuse of power. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The irony crushed her like a collapsing building. She looked around, expecting someone to intervene, to defend her. But no one did. The very people who had cowered before her now watched with silent satisfaction. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut sent a chill through the room. Judge Marjorie Calloway, the woman who had sentenced countless individuals with a smug smile, was now being led away like a common criminal. And the man arresting her was the same officer she had just insulted. But how did it come to this? How did one of the most feared judges in the city go from ruling the courtroom to being a prisoner in it? The answer lay in what had happened before this moment. Officer Elijah Brooks had always believed in justice. He had grown up in a rough neighborhood, watching his friends get swallowed by the system. Some deserved it. Others had simply been victims of a game rigged against them. That was why he became a cop, not to be part of the problem, but to be part of the solution. But the system was cruel. It didn't welcome people like him. It chewed them up, spat them out, and expected them to give up. He didn't. He worked harder, smarter. Soon, he became one of the best detectives in the department. So when a major corruption case involving Judge Calloway landed on his desk, he knew this was his moment. He had seen what she did. She took money under the table. She falsified records. She destroyed lives with a flick of her pen. And when she had nothing else to do, she insulted people like him, believing she was untouchable. But Elijah knew something she didn't. For weeks, he and his team had been gathering proof. Hidden bank transactions, recorded conversations, witness testimonies. Piece by piece, he built an ironclad case. But he kept it quiet. If Judge Calloway got a whiff of what was coming, she would destroy it all. So he planned carefully. The day of the court hearing, he arrived early, sitting in the audience as a silent observer. His case against her was already filed. The arrest warrant was ready. He just needed her to be exactly who she was: proud, arrogant, and cruel. And she played her part perfectly. When she saw him in her courtroom, she couldn't resist. She spewed her hatred, her superiority, her belief that she was beyond reproach. She thought she was untouchable. But as she laughed at him, as she humiliated him in front of the entire courtroom, she had no idea that she was minutes away from losing everything. Then, after her final insult, a thick silence settled over the room. No one spoke. The air itself seemed heavier. Elijah stood up. "Judge Calloway," he said, his voice firm. "I've been watching you for a long time." She scoffed. "Oh, have you now?" "Yes," he replied. "And now it's time for justice." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" Elijah pulled out a piece of paper. "This is a warrant for your arrest." Gasps erupted throughout the room. Whispers. Shocked murmurs. Judge Calloway's face turned red. You can't be serious." "I am." Elijah's tone was unshaken. "And trust me, Judge Calloway, this is long, long overdue." As the bailiff, who had served under her for years, hesitated, Another officer stepped forward. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed her arm. "Get your hands off me," she screamed. But there was no one left to listen. The walls of power she had built around herself had crumbled. She looked around in desperation, but the people who had once feared her now looked at her with something else. Satisfaction. The handcuffs clicked shut, and her world collapsed. And this was just the beginning. Judge Marjorie Calloway's face twisted with rage and disbelief. She struggled against the officers, but it was no use. The cold steel of the handcuffs tightened around her wrists. "You think you can do this to me?" she snarled, her voice shaking with fury. "I'm a law in this city. This is my courtroom." Elijah Brooks didn't flinch. He simply looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Not anymore." The courtroom was still in shock. Reporters who had come to cover other cases scrambled to grab their cameras, their hands shaking as they tried to capture the moment. "The arrogance of this woman," someone whispered. "Did he really just arrest a judge?" another muttered. Judge Calloway turned her head wildly, searching for an ally. Her eyes landed on District Attorney Philip Grayson. "Do something," she screamed. "Stop them." Grayson, a man who had worked under her for years, took a step forward. For a second, it looked like he might intervene. But then, as if realizing something, he stopped. His shoulders slumped, and he took a step back. He wasn't going to save her. Judge Calloway's breathing became erratic. "This is a mistake. This is a mistake," she shrieked. "You don't know who you're messing with, boy." Elijah clenched his jaw at the word, but remained calm. "I know exactly who I'm messing with, and I know exactly where you're going." He nodded to his fellow officers. "Take her." As they led her toward the exit, Judge Calloway thrashed. "This is illegal. I demand to speak to the governor." Elijah allowed himself a small smirk. "Oh, don't worry, Judge. The governor already knows." The moment those words left his mouth, she froze. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, real fear crept onto her face. The doors swung open, and she was dragged out of the courtroom, her screams echoing through the halls. And just like that, the mighty Judge Marjorie Calloway was gone.